It was supposed to be just another quiet afternoon. I've always found a strange kind of comfort in cleaning. The soft hum of the vacuum, the gentle thud of drawers closing, the smell of lemon polish in the air. With Thomas at work, the house felt calm, almost too calm. As I walked past the old bookshelf tucked in the corner, something made me pause. It's been ages since I touched it. Honestly, it's one of those spots you swear you'll organize but never do, until today. As I started pulling books down, dust swirled in the sunlight like tiny ghosts. That's when I noticed it. A gap. A tiny out-of-place gap between the back panel and the frame. I tilted my head, frowning, then reached out and pressed against it. To my surprise, it shifted. A soft little click, like a secret being unlocked. And right there, hidden away, was a leather-bound notebook. Old. Worn. Tucked so carefully that it was clear. Someone didn't want it found. I sat down right there on the floor, heart pounding just a bit faster than it should. My fingers brushed over the cracked cover. For a moment, I even smiled, half expecting it to be something sweet. Maybe old love letters, silly doodles, or one of Thomas's half-finished projects. Something harmless, something normal. But the second I flipped it open, my stomach dropped. My name, right there on the very first line, written in his unmistakable handwriting. But not the way you write someone you love. No, not at all. At first, I thought maybe I was misunderstanding. Maybe it was something else. But as my eyes scanned the next few lines, that little flicker of doubt turned into something colder. It wasn't a letter. It wasn't poetry. It was a journal. His journal. And the way he wrote about me, like I was some problem to solve. Some obstacle in the way of... What? I felt my hands go cold, gripping the edges of the notebook tighter, like it might slip away. I turned the page, half terrified, half desperate to believe I was wrong. But no. It only got worse. Every word felt like a dagger. He was writing about his life, but not the life I knew. Not the life we shared. These were notes, observations, plans, things he would say to me, things he didn't mean, things he did just to keep me from noticing. And then, the mention of her. No name. Just her. My breath caught in my throat. I wasn't prepared for this. I wasn't prepared to read about her. The way he described their moments, the excitement, the thrill, the sneaking around, how easy it was to lie to me, how routine it had become, how, to him, I was nothing more than background noise, just something stable, predictable, convenient. And right there, in black ink, was the first time I truly realized. My marriage wasn't what I thought it was. I could feel my pulse in my ears, loud, heavy, suffocating. My hands trembled as I flipped another page, even though part of me was screaming to stop. But how could I? How do you look away from something like this? From the truth unraveling right in front of you? Each sentence peeled back another layer of the man I thought I knew. The man I married. The man I trusted with every part of me. There were no signs. Or maybe there were. Maybe I just didn't want to see them. All those late meetings, the sudden business trips, the half-hearted excuses that, at the time, I convinced myself were harmless. He even wrote about how easy it was to distract me, how a simple compliment or a random bouquet of flowers was enough to buy his freedom for another night. God, how did I not see it? I sat there on the floor, notebook open in my lap, feeling like the walls were closing in. Part of me wanted to throw it across the room, to scream, to cry, but I couldn't move. I just sat there, staring at the words that had just shattered my world. And deep down, I knew. This wasn't the end of what I was about to discover. Not even close. I wish I could say I stopped reading, that I closed that notebook and walked away. But the truth, I couldn't. My hands wouldn't let go, even as they trembled. Every word dragged me deeper into a reality I wasn't ready to face. This wasn't just a diary. It was a confession. Page after page, line after line. An unfiltered, unapologetic account of his double life. The life he lived right under my nose. There were no vague hints, no cryptic metaphors, just raw, disgusting details. The way he described meeting her. How they laughed behind my back. How they'd sneak away in the middle of the day, lying about meetings, errands, last-minute obligations. His words painted a picture so vivid, so cruel. It felt like I was sitting there in the corner of every scene, watching it all unfold. Helpless. Invisible. Erased. And what broke me most wasn't just the betrayal itself. It was how he enjoyed it. He wrote about the rush, the adrenaline, the thrill of deceiving me. How clever he felt, crafting lies, covering his tracks, juggling two lives like it was some kind of game. As if I was stupid. As if I was just a piece of furniture in his perfect little stage play. A background character in a story I didn't even know I was part of. I kept turning the pages, even though every word felt like a punch straight to my chest. It wasn't some distant mistake he regretted. No, it was still happening. The dates were recent, the entries, fresh. This wasn't a story of the past. This was my present. My life was unraveling in real time, right there in my own living room, in my own hands. And the worst part? He never planned to stop. One entry stood out. It started with, "She has no idea." He was talking about me. Describing how easy it was to keep me in the dark, how predictable I was, how he could smile, kiss me goodbye, send me a love you text, while already planning his next rendezvous. I could practically hear his voice in those words, the same voice that used to whisper, "I love you" at night. It made me sick. And then came the part that shattered something inside me completely. He wrote about how alive he felt when he was with her, how, when he was home with me, it felt dull, routine, boring. His words. "I feel like I'm just performing when I'm home, smiling when I'm supposed to smile, saying what I'm supposed to say. But with her, I can breathe." That's when I felt it. Something colder than heartbreak. Something sharper than pain. I could barely breathe. My eyes blurred, but I kept wiping the tears away, refusing to stop. Refusing to look away. I needed to know. I had to know how deep this went. Each page was like a knife carving through every memory, every holiday, every "I love you" we ever shared. Suddenly it all felt staged, manufactured, like I'd been living in a play where everyone knew their lines, except me. He even wrote about the lies in advance, the fake meetings, the sudden errands, the reasons he'd come home late or act distant. It wasn't spontaneous. It was planned, calculated, a checklist of deceit. He bragged about how convincing he was, how easily he could switch roles, doting husband in one breath, secret lover in the next. Reading it made me realize I never really knew the man I married. Not truly. And as I sat there, drowning in this avalanche of betrayal, something shifted inside me. Something snapped. This wasn't just about him cheating. It was so much bigger than that. It was about being made a fool. About having my reality manipulated. About being reduced to a placeholder in my own life. And right then, through the shaking, through the ache, I knew. This story wasn't over, not even close. I don't even know how long I sat there, frozen on the living room floor. Time didn't feel real anymore. Minutes. Hours. It all blurred together. My hands clutched that notebook like it was the only thing tethering me to reality. The very same reality it just shattered. My heart kept swinging between two unbearable extremes. One moment, it was heartbreak so heavy I could barely breathe. The next, it was rage. Blistering. Consuming. Every memory started playing on a loop. His smiles, his hugs, the late-night talks, the weekend getaways, the "I love yous" whispered against my skin, and suddenly it all felt poisoned, tainted, fake, like I was watching a movie of someone else's life, someone foolish enough to believe it was real. I kept asking myself, was it all a lie? Was there ever a moment that was real? But deep down, I already knew the answer. My hands trembled as I grabbed my phone. For a second, I didn't even know what I was doing. Call him? Scream at him? Demand answers? But no, something colder, sharper, steadier, took over. I opened the camera instead. Click, click, click. One photo after another, every page, every word. I wasn't just a broken wife sitting on the floor anymore. I was a woman gathering proof, evidence, ammunition. And this time, I was the one writing the story. The more I photographed, the steadier my hands became, almost like each click of the camera pulled me 1 inch further away from the heartbreak and 1 step closer to something else, something stronger, something colder. I wasn't sure if it was anger or survival or maybe both. But whatever it was louder now than the pain. And it was starting to drown out the sobbing voice in my head, begging to wake up from this nightmare. I flipped through more pages, each one a fresh betrayal. Details of their little vacations, days I thought he was on business trips, dinners at restaurants we used to go to. Even gifts, ones I thought were for me, but no, they were for her. He wrote about how he'd stand in front of me, lying straight to my face, and how easy it was. His words, easy. Like deceiving me had become muscle memory, routine, second nature. At one point, I realized this wasn't just infidelity. This wasn't some lapse in judgment. It was cruelty. A deliberate, ongoing choice to betray someone who loved him with her whole heart. Someone who trusted him without question. And that's when something shifted completely. I wasn't going to let him see me broken. I wasn't going to confront him sobbing, begging, asking, why? No. He didn't deserve that version of me. He was going to meet someone else entirely. I sat there, staring at the last page I photographed, and something inside me solidified. The kind of resolve that doesn't come from anger alone, but from knowing, deep in your bones, that you've been played for a fool, and you'll never let it happen again. This wasn't going to be some messy screaming match. No thrown dishes, no teary confrontation, no. If he wanted to play games, then fine, I'd play too. But by my rules. Slowly, I closed the notebook, my fingers pressing against the worn leather like sealing away a curse. I looked around our home, my home, and everything felt different now. The couch where we watched movies, the table where we shared dinners, the bed where he kissed me goodnight. It was all contaminated, tainted by every lie he wrote so proudly. But as suffocating as it was, there was also clarity, painfully sharp clarity. And in that moment, I knew exactly what I had to do. Not today. Not tomorrow. But soon. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to prepare. Quietly. Carefully. Ruthlessly. Because if Thomas thought he was the only one capable of writing stories in secret, he was about to learn exactly how wrong he was. The next morning, I woke up before the sun, earlier than usual, and as strange as it sounds. I smiled, not because I was okay, not because it didn't hurt, but because, for the first time since reading that notebook, I was the one holding the cards. I made his coffee, kissed his cheek, watched him grab his laptop and head out the door like nothing was wrong. Like I wasn't carrying the weight of his entire double life in my back pocket. I spent that day doing exactly what he expected me to do, smiling, texting him sweet little messages. Can't wait to see you tonight. Miss you already. And you know what? He responded right on cue. With heart emojis, with I love you too sprinkled between meetings. Meetings, right. Except now I knew exactly where he really was, because he'd described it, right there in his precious diary. But while he was busy living his perfect little lie, I was busy too. My first stop? A lawyer. The second? The bank. I sat there with my hands calmly folded, organizing documents, downloading statements, preparing every piece of my life he thought I'd be too blind to protect. No tears, no breakdowns. Just quiet, precise moves. And the scariest part? He had no idea, absolutely no clue that the woman he betrayed was about to become his worst nightmare. Every time my phone buzzed with one of his sweet, clueless texts, I felt this strange mix of disgust and power. "What do you want for dinner, babe?" he asked. Oh, Thomas, if only you knew what I was actually cooking. While he played the loving husband role so flawlessly, I was lining up every single domino. Bank accounts, credit cards, joint assets, things I once never imagined touching, suddenly became weapons. I started gathering more than just financials, screenshots, photos, copies of documents, messages, every breadcrumb that painted the full picture of the man behind the mask. And the crazy thing? I never even had to go looking. He handed me most of it without even realizing. That diary was the key that unlocked everything. His arrogance, his complete belief that I'd never suspect, was about to cost him everything. At home, I smiled. I laughed. I cooked dinner like nothing was wrong. I let him wrap his arms around me, whisper, "I love you," like he always did. And as much as it made my skin crawl, I let him. Because he needed to believe nothing had changed, that I was still the same naive woman he thought would never look behind the curtain. But oh, if only he knew just how awake I was now. The night I chose wasn't random. It was intentional, calculated. The same way he calculated every lie, every excuse, every stolen moment with her. I set the table like always. Candles, wine, his favorite dinner. Everything picture perfect. Just another normal night in our perfect little marriage. Except this time, there was something extra sitting right in the middle of the table. His diary, wide open, surrounded by neatly printed copies of every single page. I sat there for a moment, just staring at it, my hands steady, my heart oddly calm. I folded a simple note and placed it right on top. "I finally read the story you were writing. Here's how mine continues, without you." No screaming, no scenes, no theatrics, just the truth, undeniable, unapologetic, waiting for him like a mirror he couldn't escape from. I didn't need to yell. The words, they'd scream loud enough on their own. And when I walked out that door, I didn't look back. Not once. Not at the house. Not at the table. Not at the man who destroyed the life we built. Because in that moment, I wasn't the broken wife anymore. I wasn't the fool. I was the woman who read the final chapter of someone else's story and decided it was time to start writing her own. Starting over wasn't easy. Let's be honest, it was terrifying. Waking up in a new apartment with unfamiliar walls and empty shelves felt both heartbreaking and liberating. For the first time in years, the silence wasn't heavy. It wasn't the sound of loneliness. It was the sound of peace. Of freedom. I no longer had to wonder where he was, who he was texting, or what lie I was being fed that day. I poured myself into rebuilding. Little things, like picking out new furniture that was mine, cooking meals just for me, laughing without that constant ache in my chest. Slowly, I started remembering the version of me that existed before betrayal, the one who smiled because life felt full, not because she was pretending. And with every day that passed, the weight of him faded a little more, a little lighter, a little easier. One morning, sitting in this tiny coffee shop near my new place, something unexpected happened. A man asked if he could share my table. Place was crowded. I glanced up, half ready to decline, but something about him felt different. Gentle eyes, kind smile, no rush, no pressure, just genuine. He introduced himself, Daniel, architect, divorced. Someone who knew what it meant to have life fall apart and how to start again. Our first conversation wasn't anything dramatic. No sparks flying, no whirlwind romance. Just easy, comfortable. Two strangers talking about everything and nothing. Coffee preferences, favorite books, why the world desperately needs better parking. And maybe that's what made it feel safe. There were no games, no pretending, just two people existing in the same moment, without expectations, without masks. Over the next few weeks, we kept running into each other, a wave here, a smile there. Then came the first official coffee together, then lunch, then long walks that stretched into hours of laughter and conversations that felt like they'd been waiting years to happen. And you know what? For the first time in a very long time, I felt seen. Not as someone's wife, not as someone's convenience. Just me. Daniel never pried. He never pushed. But he listened, really listened, when I started opening up about my life, about the storm I'd just walked out of, and instead of flinching or offering some cliché sympathy, he simply nodded. Yeah, that's heavy. But you're pretty damn incredible for coming through it. And something about hearing that, about having someone truly acknowledge my strength, made my heart ache in the best possible way. What started as simple conversations slowly turned into something more. Little by little, brick by brick, Daniel and I built something honest, something real. No secrets, no pretending, just two imperfect people choosing to show up for each other, fully, completely. We'd cook dinner together, take spontaneous road trips, or just sit in silence watching the sunset. And for the first time, silence felt comforting, safe, home. I wasn't looking to be rescued. I didn't need someone to fix me. Because truthfully, I had already saved myself the day I walked out of that house, the day I chose me. Daniel wasn't the ending to my story. He was a beautiful new chapter in a book I'd started writing with my own hands. A chapter filled with laughter, respect, and the kind of love that doesn't require pretending to be someone else. One evening, as we walked along the beach, hand in hand, barefoot, waves brushing against our feet, I glanced over at him and smiled. Not because he completed me, not because he healed me, but because I was whole, I was free, and now I was choosing someone who saw me, valued me, loved me, the way I always deserved to be loved.